Hello everyone, it's Angela Nesbit and welcome to my color story. Today we are talking about all those choices in the paint store. Do you walk into the paint store and see these beautiful displays of all these gorgeous colors and then you're completely confused? Like, what are all these choices? They leave me somewhat kind of bedazzled and confused all at the same time. And then to top it off, I end up buying a lot of things that I'm intrigued by, and either A, I try to use them and I get frustrated because it's different than what I'm used to using on my palette, or I stick them in my handy, very large storage cabinet that has lots of paint that I've collected over the years and maybe not used so often. So if you're like me, it'd be really nice to understand what do all those paint names really mean. So over the next few weeks, I'm going to demystify those large paint displays a little bit and all those different names and colors and what they mean. So this week, we are going to start with kind of what's in the tube anyway, what's in there. So, and what makes one tube more expensive than another tube? So we're really just going to focus in on the pigment and kind of identify that a little bit this week. And then the next week, we're going to look into some specific palettes and kind of painting through the errors of time and what chemistry and different things brought to play and how that's given us a lot more materials to work with. And then the last one, I'm going to do a demo. So today, what's in the tube? Well, basically it's just pigment and binder. So the pigment is just the color. It's a powdered substance that is the color that your paint is. So, a blue paint is a blue powdered substance that came from something. There's all kinds of different materials that make up the pigment, which we will talk more about next week. But the pigment is just what makes the paint the color that it is. And then there's a binder, which is typically an oil of some kind, like a linseed oil or a safflower oil, or all kinds of different oils that they put in paints. But how much pigment they put in a paint makes it either stronger, and you can use just a little bit of it to, make the color that you're trying to get, or they can kind of put more binder and less pigment, and then you're having to use a lot more paint to get to the color that you're trying to make. So that's typically the difference in why a tube of paint is more expensive than another tube of paint. A paint like Old Holland has a tremendous amount of pigment in it. A big tube of Old Holland is very, very expensive, but it also lasts a very, very, very long time. So you kind of are paying, you're getting what you pay for when it comes to pigment and paint tubes. Unfortunately, the student grade paints often just don't have very much pigment in them, so you end up going through that paint very quickly, and the more pigment they put in the paint and the higher the quality of the paint, the less paint you use, so it will last longer. So you can kind of weigh that out on your own, but that's kind of the bottom line of how all that works. So we've got pigment, we've got binder, and we are talking about how much pigment's in there and if it's high quality or low quality. Then, to make it even more confusing is, well, what does that color mean? What is ultramarine blue, or what is Davies gray, or what is Cad green light extra, or Windsor yellow, or all these different colors? What are they? And we can shine some light on that by just simply understanding how to look up the color index. If you pick up a tube, and you simply look at the back, they'll give you, most tubes will give you the ingredients, and they list numbers with letters starting like PV, PK, PO, and they tell you the color index, which is the color. It tells you the color. So PV23 is dioxazine purple. So this particular color is radiant violet. What is radiant violet? Well, if I look on the back, I see PV23 and titanium dioxide PW6. So basically what they've done is they've taken purple and added white to it and put it in this tube. So you could make this color. Some paint companies just get real fancy and start, you know, like this is called Intense Pink. Beautiful packaging, A+ on Charvin's packaging. But it's simply PR122, which is just magenta. That's all this is. It's just magenta. So, and then you can see on the back of more paints that are even more of a mixture, they'll have lots of different ones that have been added together. So again, you could mix that, you know, that mixture that they put together if you can kind of figure out the ratios. So, you know, it goes on and on and on and on, but the simple colors like cadmiums and cobalt, ultramarine blue, the phthalos, they have a certain number that is associated with them. So then all these fancy mixtures, you can look at the back and sort of decipher it. You can just Google color index number and you can find a listing, so you can print that out. I encourage you to check out the paints in your arsenal and kind of decipher what some of them actually are. Because technically, with the basics of the, you know, all the CADs and all the singular pigments, we can mix anything. So we don't really need all the mixtures that include all these different color index numbers. However, they do create nice shortcuts. So I hope that sheds a little bit of light on what's actually in your tube. I hope you'll you know, research that a little bit. I'd love to hear in the comments if you've learned of a new color that you didn't really actually know you were even using. Would love to hear and hear about the conversation. So join in the conversation. Join me in Angela's Color Story too over on Facebook, my private Facebook group. Would love to hear from you there. We have a great community of artists that's growing, and it's a lot of fun. So enjoy your palette and all your tubes of paint. And next week, we're going to talk about the classical, impressionist, and modern palette. So stay tuned. That's a really exciting and fun conversation about what makes those different and how they came about. So until next week, cheers.